Hai semua, hari ini saya akan berkongsi tentang cara mendaftar e-pembelajaran Reading Seed dan langkah menyertai modul pembelajaran. Untuk langkah pertama, buka enjin carian seperti Google dan type Open Learning Reading Seed. Kemudian, klik pada pautan paling atas. Selepas itu, klik pada butang Join Now. Untuk langkah kedua, di sini anda akan diberi pilihan sama ada menggunakan Microsoft, Facebook atau akaun email. Tapi sebaiknya saya sarankan anda untuk menggunakan akaun email. Langkah ketiga, anda diminta untuk mengisi butiran lengkap sebelum memulakan modul pembelajaran. Pembelajaran ini mengandungi 12 modul. Setiap modul haruslah dilengkapkan dan anda juga harus membuka setiap audio yang disertakan dalam modul. Selepas habis setiap modul, anda dikehendaki untuk memberi komen. Untuk langkah keempat, setelah selesai semua modul e-pembelajaran, anda dikehendaki untuk mengisi maklumat penilaian. Akhir sekali, anda akan memperolehi e-sijil setelah selesai semua modul e-pembelajaran. Kiranya anda mempunyai anak berumur 3 tahun ke bawah, anda boleh menuntut Kids Reading Seed di mana-mana cawangan pustaka yang berdekatan. Anda dikehendaki untuk membawa sijil dan buku rekod kesihatan anak untuk tuntutan. Selamat mencoba!
Hai, selamat datang di kursus e-pembelajaran pandai. Saya Franklin Anagiman, merupakan fasilitator untuk program pandai. Untuk kali ini, saya ingin mengajar anda bagaimana untuk menyertai kursus pandai secara atas talian. Jom!
Langkah pertama, buka enjin carian seperti Google dan kemudian buat carian pandai Open Learning. Lihat pada pautan paling atas sekali. Kemudian klik pada program Pandai Literasi Digital untuk Komuniti. Selepas klik pada pautan tersebut, anda akan dibawa ke laman utama Pandai. Kemudian anda klik pada butang Join Now untuk menyertai kursus Pandai. Langkah kedua, pendaftaran. Pendaftaran ini boleh dibuat melalui Sign Up with Microsoft ataupun Facebook. Untuk lebih senang lagi, kita masukkan email, kata laluan dan nama penuh kita. Setelah selesai mengisi maklumat, jangan lupa klik pada ruang petak kosong seperti yang ditunjukkan. Kemudian, tekan butang Get Start. Seterusnya, klik pada petak seperti yang ditunjukkan, kemudian tekan butang Join Program Pandai. Untuk bahagian ini, sila klik butang Next. Langkah ketiga, sila isi borang A dan B. Sila lengkapkan borang A dan B dengan klik pada bahagian seperti yang ditunjukkan. Setelah selesai melengkapkan borang A dan B, barulah boleh mulakan kursus. Kursus ini mengandungi 5 buah modul. Modul yang pertama, pengurusan maklumat dan komunikasi. Modul yang kedua, menggunakan inisiatif digital kerajaan. Modul yang ketiga, berurusan secara digital. Modul yang keempat, keselamatan dalam talian. Dan modul yang kelima ialah modul perpustakaan in a box. Untuk melengkapkan kursus ini, setiap modul terdapat video yang harus dimainkan. Setiap modul diwajibkan memberi komen di ruang komen yang disediakan di setiap modul. Langkah keempat, borang C dan borang maklum balas kepuasan pelanggan. Sebelum mengakhiri kursus, pastikan di bahagian refleksi bengkel untuk melengkapkan borang bahagian C dan borang maklum balas pelanggan. Langkah yang terakhir ialah sijil pandai. Setelah berjaya menamatkan kursus, jangan lupa muat turun sijil pandai dengan klik pada butang seperti yang ditunjukkan.
Selamat mencoba. Bye.
Hai bapa semua serta permata hati anda yang disayangi sekalian. Sebentar lagi kami akan berkongsi dengan anda mengenai kit reading seats. Little Readers Treasure Box ini direka khas bagi memupuk minat membaca di kalangan anak-anak seawal mungkin serta menyokong perkembangan awal literasi dan fizikal si kecil. Kit ini mengandungi satu set kad pencapaian bayi, satu set kad imbasan hitam putih, carta pencapaian perkembangan kanak-kanak, permainan bongkah kayu, papan sentuhan deria, 3 buah buku pembelajaran dui bahasa bertajuk abjad, nombor, bentuk dan warna dan anggota badan saya. 1 buah buku bacaan beraksi dui bahasa bertajuk Saya Boleh. 4 buah buku cerita kanak-kanak dui bahasa bertajuk Kasih Sayang, Harapan dan Impian, Saya Sayang Keluarga Saya, Ambrose dan Kawan-Kawan dan Impian Saya. Set wayang kulit, carta ketinggian, poster profil bayi, buku modul ibu bapa sebagai rakan membaca dan langkah-langkah untuk muat turun aplikasi Mi Books Plus. Catatkan dan ambil gambar bayi anda bersama kad pencapaian bagi mengabadikan detik-detik indah si kecil anda. Catatkan perubahan ketinggian dan butiran si kecil anda dengan carta ketinggian dan poster profil bayi. Memperkenalkan si kecil kepada bentuk yang mudah dengan menggunakan kad imbasan hitam putih. Gunakan carta pencapaian perkembangan anak ini melalui bongkar kayu sebagai panduan perkembangan dan pencapaian si kecil anda. Contohnya, anda akan dapat melihat senyuman anak anda seawal 6 minggu. Lihat mereka menyusun dari 3 bongkar kayu pada usia 18 bulan. Dan lihat keupayaan mereka melompat dengan menggunakan hanya satu kaki pada usia 4 tahun. Mempelajari abjad, nombor, bentuk, warna dan anggota badan dalam bahasa Inggeris dan bahasa Malaysia dengan buku pembelajaran. Membaca sambil beraksi dengan si kecil anda dan perhatikan perkembangan mereka melalui buku Saya Boleh. Mulakan pengembaraan membaca untuk anak anda dengan 3 buah buku cerita dui bahasa, Ambrose dan kawan-kawan, Kasih Sayang, Harapan dan Impian dan Saya Sayang Keluarga Saya yang dihasilkan oleh penulis dan pelukis tempatan. Galakkan si kecil untuk menceritakan impian mereka berasaskan ilustrasi sahaja melalui buku Impian Saya. Berhibur dengan set wayang kulit sambil mengenal haiwan, bentuk yang mudah dan juga karakter yang mudah difahami. Model untuk ibu bapa ini direka khas untuk ibu bapa bagi memahami menjalankan aktiviti yang meningkatkan literasi dan perkembangan si kecil mereka di rumah. Bukan itu sahaja, sebahagian daripada program Reading Seeds dengan kerjasama Perpustakaan Negara Malaysia serta semua perpustakaan awam negeri, anda juga akan menerima aplikasi Mi Books Plus yang mengandungi lebih daripada 300 judul buku kanak-kanak. Semua buku tersebut dilengkapi dengan audio suara naratif dan kesan bunyi serta suara yang boleh dirakam. Sila imbas kod QR di belakang modul ibu bapa dan muat turun aplikasi dari Apple App Store atau Google Play Store. Masuk aplikasi dan klik Join and get 2 weeks free. Kemudian cipta akaun baru dengan email dan kata laluan anda. Untuk mengaktifkan akaun aplikasi Mi Books Plus anda secara percuma selama setahun, kembali semula ke laman web tadi, masukkan email yang didaftarkan dan kod pengaktifan yang telah disediakan di belakang modul ibu bapa. Mudah sahaja. Pilih salah satu buku dan tekan butang berwarna pelangi. Klik pada mana-mana karakter atau ayat di dalam laman buku untuk mendengar narasi oleh pelakon bersuara profesional.
Di saat aku membuka mata untuk kali pertama, segalanya kelihatan kabur.
Untuk merakam suara naratif anda sendiri, lakarkan sebuah bentuk dan tekan lama pada bentuk tersebut untuk merakam suara anda.
Butterfly. Butterfly.
Jadilah seorang pencerita yang lebih berimajinasi. Kami berharap anda dan si kecil anda memperolehi manfaat hasil daripada bacaan bersama dengan kit Reading Seeds ini, sekaligus memupuk minat membaca untuk generasi yang akan datang.
Okay, 10:01, Mr. Tony, yeah, Secretariat. Okay, so I think in the interest of time, in respect of time, it is now 10:01. So to be fair to all that has been punctual, we have now 93 participants via Zoom and Facebook count, Diana, how many have entered our Facebook Live?
Yes, Facebook now is starting. So
It's
we
starting.
have, yeah, we have it's incoming.
It's incoming, yeah. All right. Yeah, that's good. Okay, maybe we'll allow another few more seconds. Okay, selamat pagi, Kian Tungku. Good morning. Thank you for the greeting. Yeah, feel free to make this session an interactive session. Yeah, for all. Yeah. Good morning, Brian Chan. Good morning from all of us in MASA and also from the Economic Planning Unit. Thank you for joining us today. May we allow another 10-15 more seconds for everyone to join in via Facebook Live as well as Zoom. Yeah, we understand it's a rainy day, so maybe internet connection in certain areas may be a bit slow. Yeah, so shall we allow another 15-30 seconds for people to come in? Good morning, Albert. Good morning, Tuan Moshidi, Abang Yus, Mr. Dave, Siva Kumar, Wan Mazli, Ari, and everyone. Thank you so much, Regina, Muhammad Awis. So we have now 101 participants. Well done and welcome. Yeah. Okay, so shall we, since we have hit the 102 participants mark. All right, so we shall start the webinar officially. Yeah. So Assalamualaikum and a very, very good Saturday morning to everyone with us here today. Yes, how is everyone? Apa khabar kita orang semua? Hopefully everybody is in the best of health and keeping calm and cool during these pandemic times. It's not easy, but together we shall fight this pandemic together. Okay, so today's webinar session on post-COVID-19 development strategy 2030 is a series of webinars and events that MASA, the Institute of Management Sarawak, has been organizing for this year. For the information of you out there who may not be aware of Institute of Management Sarawak's event for this year, if I may, recall for your information, so that you'll be of knowledge of what Institute of Management Sarawak offers you. If you join us as a member and as a public who can engage with us from time to time. So our first webinar for this year was, what do employers expect from fresh graduates? Okay, so it was by Prof. Voon, Tan Sri Hamid and Dr. Zulkifli in April. The second webinar was on how to achieve your financial goals by Mr. Yo Wee Kiap from AKPK and also another speaker from EPF. So very useful topics, and that was in May 2021. And the third webinar was on a growth mindset, a superpower tool for improving people's potential by Dr. Kudip in July 2021. So just last month. So today in August, our Merdeka month, we have this post-COVID-19 development strategy 2030. And we have two more exciting events coming up, guys. So make sure you join us, which is the State Budget Talk, about the budget that is coming up. And it is scheduled on the 4th of September. Okay, put it in your calendar now. Make sure you join us for the State Budget Talk. And another one scheduled on oil and gas by no other than our Mr. President Tan Sri Hamid Buko, upcoming possibly in October onwards. So be sure to mark this in your calendar. So this is what the Institute of Management Sarawak is offering the public in Sarawak to meet MASA's mission as a platform for the public and private sectors to engage in giving ideas, feedback, and experiences with regard to government policies in developing our beloved state of Sarawak. All right, so that is a bit of a background of MASA for you. So now, we shall now start the session proper on the post-COVID-19 development strategy 2030. So as you know, this is a collaboration between MASA and also the Economic Planning Unit of Sarawak. So the objective of the webinar today is to give information to all of you on the post-COVID-19 development strategy 2030 that has been launched by YAB Chief Minister on the 22nd of July 2021, just last month, fresh from the oven, right? So we want you to be part of this strategy. Together, we shall make it happen. All right, so a little bit of synopsis of what is PCDS 2030. All right, so this is a plan whereby the Sarawak government has committed an amount of 63 billion to implement plans under the newly revealed PCDS 2030 as a thrust to double the size of its economy and to help the state back on track to becoming a developed and advanced state within 10 years, 2030, our aspiration. So the devised plan highlights 7 strategic thrusts to accelerate economic growth, anchored by 6 economic sectors as the main engines of growth, and supported by 7 enablers that will help position Sarawak as an attractive investment destination, right? So it is proud that we are organizing this together for the benefit of the public in order to engage all of you for this plan and to get inputs from all of you as well to support this plan for Sarawak to achieve the 3 main goals under this PCDS, which are economic prosperity, social inclusivity, and environmental sustainability. So before we start, we have a special video presentation for you for us to have a background on what is PCDS 2030. All right, kita saksikan bersama. Ya. Thank you, Mr. Secretariat, please.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are now at a very testing time due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has caused untold sufferings across the globe, workers are displaced, mobility of people is severely restricted, while businesses are seriously interrupted. Global and national economies are suffering from contraction and recessionary pressures. It is these trying times, circumstances that prompted YAB Ketua Menteri to deviate from the normal planning approach and came up with a bright and visionary ideas of formulating a robust strategic plan to enable Sarawak to emerge stronger post-COVID-19 pandemic. Thus, the formation of the Sarawak Economic Action Council, with him himself as the captain to steer Sarawak out of the economic doldrum. The Sarawak Civil Service is committed to facilitate the implementation of the plan and will provide the necessary support to the government, the private sector, and the ordinary citizens. I believe we have the capacity and capability to implement the various initiatives, programs, and projects that have been planned. With the strategic direction in place, Sarawak and its people will witness and experience robust development that will elevate the socio-economic well-being of the people with more access to economic opportunities. Everything we do during this and after this crisis must be with a strong focus on building more equitable, more inclusive, and sustainable economy and society that is more resilient in the face of pandemics, climate change, and many other global challenges that we may be confronted with.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, while bracing for the current pandemic, we should not forget what we can do for the future of Sarawak. That is why Sarawak government has formed Sarawak Economic Action Council SAC in May last year. We want Sarawak to recover from this pandemic with a stronger and more resilient economy and to sustain the level of economic and social development. This is to assure future generation of Sarawakian a happy, peaceful, and prosperous state with opportunities for all, regardless of their racial, cultural, or religious backgrounds, or the regions in the state they are from. To accomplish this, the state government has charted our journey for the next decade. Nobody knows when the pandemic will end, but we know where we want to be comes 2030. This morning, I am unveiling the post-COVID-19 development strategies 2030 that outline what we plan to do and the strategic directions of Sarawak government has devised to accomplish the objectives of the plan. Post-COVID-19 development strategy 2030, our aspiration. Sarawak aspires to be a developed state by 2030. Sarawak will be a thriving society driven by data and innovation, where everyone enjoys economic prosperity, social inclusivity, and sustainable environment. In terms of our economic prosperity, Sarawak needs to double the size of the economy from 136 billion ringgit in 2019 to 282 billion ringgit in 2030. To achieve this target, Sarawak economy needs to grow on average 6 to 8% per annum until 2030. Inclusive society means that all Sarawakians will have equal opportunities to participate in the state's overall development and enjoy equitable distribution of wealth through jobs and business opportunities. Environmental sustainability is an integral part of Sarawak Development Initiative. This is to ensure clean and healthy environment for current and future generations. Moving forward, Sarawak will innovate using data to increase productivity, develop high-value products, improve safety of our people and assets, as well as enhance environmental conservation efforts. Therefore, the core objectives of PCDS 2030 are: A. To change the economic structure by increasing the scale of production to capture efficiencies upstream, increasing downstream activities, and growing the services sector.
Secretariat, is it a line? The video is stuck, Mr. Secretariat. Hang on now while the Secretariat try to reboot or move the video forward. Hang on, everyone. We understand technical glitches, especially on a rainy day.
Yeah, maybe we can just continue, Dr. Intan.
Okay,
I think that towards the end, I believe. Towards the end.
Towards the end, we can play the video again, Mr. Secretary. Not able to continue. All right, so we continue to our panelist session. The highlight of today's webinar. With me here, I feel very honored because we have three distinguished gentlemen which are of high esteem and expert in their fields. So give me the honor to introduce our three speakers for today who will share with us on PCDS. So the first speaker for today will be Mr. Patrick Tay, who is the partner, Economics and Policy Malaysia leader from the PricewaterhouseCoopers Advisory Services, Sdn Bhd. Welcome, Mr. Patrick Tay.
Thank you.
And Mr. Patrick will be speaking to us and sharing about the current economic performance and outlook, as well as Sarawak Aspiration and Strategic Trust under the PCDS 2030 Sarawak Development Perspective. So, Mr. Patrick, you have 10 minutes of the floor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Very good morning to all of you in Sarawak. It's been more than a few months since I've been back to Sarawak, so it's a shame. But let me just start off by wishing you a very good morning, and also by being very open and frank and blunt about it, right? You know, there's no way to sugarcoat things. We are not in a good economic situation at the moment, globally, in Malaysia, as well as in the state. I mean, this is through nothing that we can control in large part because of COVID. When we started the journey with the Sarawak EPU and the government on this project, it was starting to happen, you know, but I guess, you know, it would be fair to say at that stage, you know, people expected the recovery to be a lot sooner. So what I will do is I will touch on the current economic performance outlook with a lot of attention paid to the diagnosis, the very detailed diagnosis that we did, you know, into the Sarawak state's economy, as well as the global economic opportunities, both pre and post-COVID, so that we can advise on how to position for post-COVID. So if I can, maybe one of the things I want to start off with by saying is that while, you know, we do work closely, you know, with experts in Malaysia, in the state, especially within the civil service, but also in extensive consultation with the business and industry sector in Sarawak. We also acknowledge and we also access, you know, some global expertise, right? Besides some global experts in the PwC network, in which we ask them for certain things, we also talk to the foremost authority on global competitiveness, on economic competitiveness, in Professor Stephen Garelli. So, we work closely with him, to actually look at the situation and to look at, what are some possible paths out of it. So if I move on to the situation, again, being very free and frank, basically, when you look at the historical performance, Sarawak State has been in certain periods doing very well, but on average overall has grown slower. And this is a characteristics of being a very heavy economic, resource-based economic dependence. So one of the key things that, when you look at the detail and you look at the opportunities available post-COVID, is that we need to try to change the economic structure. So that was one of the key thrusts, in the strategy that was announced by Yang Ahmad Berhormat CM. So changing economic structure is quite important. If you can't get the economic structure to change and you continue to be dependent on resource base, I think, you can still increase growth. There's still a lot of potentials to increase growth, but you'll be limited. So the other key thing that we looked at was, where was the growth happening? What were the opportunities in the future? And how did it benefit the rakyat? Remember, one of the aspirations articulated by Yang Ahmad Berhormat was to actually ensure economic prosperity for all. So it was quite important for us, in looking at the growth, to look at historical and look at the future, to actually advise on how to actually get the growth to actually benefit. I don't want to use the word trickle down. Ideally, trickle down is a very bad language, because it suggests that, there's a bunch of people at the top there monopolizing the resources. Ideally, what we want to do is we want to flood it down. We want, the rivers in Sarawak brings a lot of prosperity. I know there are some challenges sometimes, but it brings a lot of prosperity because it results in very fertile landscapes. So we want to actually flood the opportunities, to the rakyat. So when we looked at the economic structure and we look at the opportunities, what we found was that in a post-COVID world, there are many aspects, of this Sarawak economic landscape that has very big potential to actually enable us to actually advise the state that, these potentials can be achieved, provided we do certain things. So let me talk about the potentials first. So in a post-COVID world, right, the world, I guess, for want of a better word, people are looking at, a different growth model. People are embracing, the ESG. People are looking for a more sustainable model. People looking for sustainable energy resources. People are looking for sustainable practices in the development, of industries, etc. Leading up to 2018, 2019, there was also large geopolitical shifts, right? So as the esteemed late and honorable Lee Kuan Yew, Prime Minister Singapore, has said, the early part of the 20th century belonged to the Western world. The later part of the 20th century and the 21st century will belong to the Asian. So there is big geopolitical, some would say tectonic shifts in economic power from the West towards the East. And this has then resulted in more recent years, and in the 2030 period, the next 10 years, you will see a lot of shifting value chain, looking for investments, right, in this part of the region, in ASEAN. And we think that Sarawak is actually very well poised when you bring these two trends together, the mega trend of looking for sustainable, looking for, safe places, and the trend of, looking for investments into this region to actually service, the large and burgeoning 3 to 4 billion, Asian market. So when you piece all this together, it's a bit challenging for me to actually describe months and months of work together and a lot of detail, 300 pages report of analysis. But this is probably the best way I can summarize it in the 10 minutes that I have, is that when you bring all these things together, right, you will see that Sarawak has actually got great potential to actually lift its economic performance, to double the economy, right, to actually rapidly increase the growth rate. Now, one of the things that we always do when we look at this is to look at, whether we are Some will say, like, do we have our, like castle in the air theory, etc., and all that. So when we look at the economic performance of regions globally and also within the region, within ASEAN, within Malaysia, right, you can see that there are, like ability of regions to actually sustain and rapidly grow over 10%, okay, for periods of even up to 10, 15, 20 years. So it is not an impossible task, right? It is definitely very possible. One last thing that I want to comment on as we discuss this economic performance and outlook is the embracing by the state. The state was one of the early adopters of the digital agenda. Now, this is extremely important because it would help overcome not only the tyranny of distance, but also the tyranny of density. So Sarawak has historically, although geographically it is in the center of ASEAN, but in terms of the logistics links, etc., and all that, it has been, for want of a better word, over the past 300-400 years, a bit to the side, right? When you look at where the major flows are. And also within the state, the density of 22 people per square kilometer. If you try to visualize that, it'll be imagining you're standing here and there's 2 football fields to your north and to your east, right? And before you see the next person. So that is, if you can visualize the length of a football field, 2 football fields before you see another person. So this is the tyranny of this of density. Now, digital will enable you to overcome all this, and digital will create extremely strong opportunities that the rich and imaginative Sarawak population can take advantage of. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick for that very comprehensive overview of our outlook. So together we try to be positive and contribute whatever we can towards our shared aspirations, as mentioned by Mr. Patrick a while ago. So now we move on to our second speaker for today, which is in the person of Young Berusaha, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Abdullah bin Zaidil. He is the Director of Economic Planning Unit, Sarawak State Government. So Young Berusaha Associate Professor Doctor will enlighten us about the 6 economic sectors that will propel economic growth in Sarawak under the PCDS, as well as highlight the major initiatives under those sectors. Associate Professor Doctor, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Intan, for a very brief introduction. I think it's very, I need most of the introduction. And thank you very much, Patrick, for your first salvo for this morning. Okay, as what Dr. Intan correctly mentioned, and that I will basically share some of the 6 economic sectors that is part and parcel of this post-COVID-19 strategy for the year towards the year 2030, so that we'll give some insights to those audience on where are we heading and on what basis, on what platform we are actually anchoring. So PCDS 2030 is anchored basically on 6 economic sectors as the main engine of growth, the way I can put it lah. So these 6 sectors, namely manufacturing, commercial agriculture, tourism, forestry, mining, and social services. So for the manufacturing sector, basically we aim to promote Sarawak as a preferred investment destination, especially on high value downstream activities for resource and non-resource based industry, both for DDI and FDI. This will be supported by development of efficient ecosystem for private investments such as industrial parks, equipped with industrial infrastructure for private investment, such as among the initiative include the development of petrochemical hub in Bintulu, extension of Samajaya High Tech Park, and bio-industrial park, and even furniture park for that matter. At the same time, more entrepreneurship program involving local communities in businesses will be implemented to increase the community participation, especially the SMEs. And moving forward, we aspire, Sarawak aspire to be a net food exporter for the year by the year 2030. This will be achieved through, as I mentioned earlier, one of the 6 economic sectors, which is the commercial agriculture sector that capitalizes on modern farming and global partnership. If everybody knows that, aware that Sarawak is what Patrick mentioned just now, is very resource-based, and basically, if you look at our agriculture sector, we are basically all the years we've been emphasizing on subsistence farming. So it's time to change from subsistence farming to commercial agriculture, where we become net food exporter. So when I say net food exporter, not meaning to say the upstream, but we are looking more for the downstream production and whatnot. So commercial agriculture here will attract private investment and to accelerate productivity and growth in this sector, that will provide valuable feedstock to high value downstream food processing, as I mentioned earlier just now. So basically, it's for the export market. Among the key initiatives are developing agro parks, high value the downstream products such as oleochemicals and smart farming programs. So these are for those agriculture enthusiasts. So there's a lot of prospect future for this sector, where we're looking at commercial and economy of scale of production. And next in line is tourism. Tourism is a key sector. We also look at to drive the Sarawak visibility and branding around the world. So by 2030, Sarawak aims to be the leading destination for ecotourism and business event in Asia region. And also this is driven by empowering communities to conserve heritage, culture and biodiversity, and to promote investment and development in the tourism sector. More tourism products and assets will be developed, supported by increased connectivity and capacity building of local tourism players. So Sarawak will promote culture, adventure, nature, food and festival, and diversify Sarawak tourism focus into health tourism, sport tourism, agro-tourism and education tourism. These initiatives are expected to increase the number of visitors by at least not less than 7.5% per annum. And another economic sectors which I have highlighted earlier is the forestry sector. This sector aims to be globally recognized in sustainable management of tropical forests and biodiversity conservation, while enhancing the rapid growth of timber industry. Forest management particularly and stewardship will focus on balancing rates of deforestation and growth. So increasing product yield and enhancing services obtained from forests. In addition to that, sustainable approaches to monetize Sarawak rich resources will be implemented to provide economic opportunity for the rural communities. Among the initiatives which I can share with you include replanting of 200,000 hectares of degraded forest areas, implement carbon credit programs, establish bamboo plantation, and develop bamboo-based industry and certification of 4.5 million hectares of long-term forest license area, which is also the natural forest by 2022, which is next year, and 178,000 hectares of forest plantation by 2025 under the Malaysian Timber Certification Scheme and Forest Stewardship Council. And mining, not forgetting mining sector in Sarawak, is currently driven by oil and gas upstream activities. as mentioned earlier by Patrick, that Sarawak is a basic mining sector are mainly dominated by the mining, by the oil and gas upstream activities, which provide the feedstock for petrochemical industry, especially in Bintulu. However, moving forward, Sarawak will explore in other mineral resources such as silica sands, rare earth element (REE), and kaolin clay for high value downstream activities. So these are just a few, not limited to that. So to support this development, the state will develop geological mapping to provide details such as location, reserve volume, and grades for the for the sector just now. And of course, we also in the strategy to design a business model to facilitate development in mining industry and downstream processing. Basically after all these 6 sectors mentioned, the well-being of the people is at the forefront of this state government's agenda, and is even more critical than the welfare of the people is given due attention as we emerge from the economic and personal hardship encountered during this pandemic. Meaning to say, this strategy, this plan emphasize on the people's welfare, Sarawakian welfare, more important than any other. So the state government want to establish a firm foundation for the people to recover from the devastation caused to their life and livelihood in the fight against the virus. So under the social services sector, Sarawak aims to provide a high living standard, healthy and inclusive society with affordability and innovative service delivery for Sarawakians. Among the key initiatives are poverty alleviation program, such as a social welfare program. For example, Sarawak Care Insurance, construction of state research and test labs, a new Norma Medical Specialist Center, special need welfare services, and housing schemes. So, finally, but give me another one minute, Doc. On economic prosperity, the development of the 6th economic sector, which is supported by, as what Dr. Intan mentioned just now, 7 enablers, will position Sarawak as an attractive investment destination. This will increase the value and quality of investment in Sarawak. The value of private investment to gross domestic product, or GDP, will increase from 21 billion ringgit in 2020 to 61.5 billion in 2030, or an increase of 11.2% per annum. The share of private investment to GDP in 2030 will be expected to be around 22%. So, though quality investment, through quality investment, Sarawak will shift its economic structure from high contribution from the services and manufacturing sector by the year 2030. The service sector contribute to Sarawak GDP will increase from 34.7% in 2020 to 38.9% in 2030, while the manufacturing sector should contribute or will increase from 26.8% 2020 last year to 29% by the year 2030. So at the same time, Sarawak will continue to develop and modernize the primary sector to increase productivity to support the high value manufacturing activities, as I mentioned just now, such as oleochemical, food production, pharmaceutical, petrochemical, hydrogen, metal-based products. So this will complement the growth in the service sector, such as transport and logistics, financial and legal services, as well as design and creative services. So through this initiative, additional of 200,000 high-paying job will be generated, making a total employment of 1.5 million by the year 2030. So thus, increased income and standard of living and opportunities for our youth to secure high-income job with a pathway for their career achievement. And the Education and Human Capital Development Initiative, not forgetting that, namely skills development training, will ensure that our people are equipped with right skill to grab the jobs created to increase their income. As such, the monthly median household income is projected to increase from 4,544 ringgit in 2019 to 15,047 ringgit by the year 2030. So on social inclusivity, we will enhance by narrowing the urban and rural development gap with greater urban-rural economic integration, capacity building, and community participation for sustainable development. And greater urban-rural economic integration will be achieved by robust infrastructure development, such as roads, accessibility, digital connectivity, and provide greater access to capital and investment facilities for commercial economic activities for domestic and export market. And capacity building from the community will be supported by human capital development program and projects such as education and health services, skills and training programs, as well as businesses, entrepreneurship and talent development initiative. With great access to market and capital, coupled with capacity building programs, the community will participate actively in commercial agriculture and tourism, mining, forestry, renewable energy, manufacturing services, and e-commerce activities. Sustainable development will be achieved with the contribution of all these initiatives where community will have sustained sustain income generation and will improve their standards of living as a result of efficient research management. And finally, on economic sustainability, Sarawak will be further enhanced through the development of Sarawak Sustainable Environment Blueprint. The blueprint will cover both the green and the blue economy initiative. Green economy covers all economic activities on land. The state will develop greenhouse gas inventory or GHG for all economic sectors and cities to identify the major contribution to GHG emission in order to formulate a green economy initiative. Blue economy covers all economic activities in the ocean and coastal areas. So the state will develop Blue Economy Index to provide input and indicators for the formulation of this initiative. The Green and the Blue Economy Initiative will provide a comprehensive and holistic Sarawak Sustainable Environment Blueprint, covering among others climate action, forestry, financing, water and land use, green cities and mobility, resilience infrastructure, sustainable energy, circular economy, and integrated watershed management. And finally, the blueprint, which will map out our strategy to build a sustainable, resource efficient, and climate resilient state. It is to enforce the implementation of enforcement agency through intensifying data collection and digitalization. These are in brief, Dr. Intan, that I have to share with the audience. But in actual fact, Patrick, you can confirm me if I'm wrong. We have about 300-page full narrative of this plan, which will be made available to the agencies and the ministries for them to use as a guide. And currently, we are also moving towards the second phase of this PCDS, whereby it's called the AIP, Action Implementation Plan, to make sure that all agencies, government agencies, and implementing agencies are guided and outcome-driven to achieve, to make sure that this COVID-19 PCDS is actually being applied. Thank you, Dr. Intan.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Muhammad. There's a question from the public if they would like to get hold of more details, as in, whether it's in the website of EPU, where is it available, this PCDS, please?
Yeah, it can be made available at our website, can be download, but at the same time, I think UCAS have it, the soft copy as well. But anytime can contact the office, we will provide them with the soft copy, the PDF format. Yeah.
Okay, so there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Whoever is interested to get hold of the PCDS, the whole document itself, and to engage with us on the best way forward, suggestion, recommendation, reviews, aspiration that you have, please get in touch with either MASA or EPU themselves in our website, Facebook, as well as you can always write into us as well through email and also the normal correspondences. Yeah, so there you go, the 6 economic sectors to propel economic growth and the major initiatives under the PCDS 2030 by Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Abdullah bin Zaidi. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. So now it's high time that we go greater depth into the PCDS 2030 by introducing the 7 enablers that would support these 6 economic sectors. Yeah, so this will be shared with you by a distinguished yang berbahagia Datuk Baklan Bangit, who is the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Transport, Sarawak. Welcome, Datuk, and good morning to you. Yeah, so Datuk Baklan will share with us the 7 enablers to support economic sectors and highlight the major initiatives under these enablers under the PCDS 2030. So yang berbahagia Datuk Baklan, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you to Dr. Intan as the moderator for our webinar this morning and for the kind introduction. I think, first of all, a very good morning to all of you, and let us all pray to the God Almighty that everyone is in good health and is protected from COVID-19 virus. Yeah. And of course, I would also like to extend my sincere thanks and appreciation to MASA and the Economic Planning Unit for inviting me as one of the speakers in this forum this morning. I'm actually deeply honored to be invited, and I'm do my very best to deliver the presentation this morning. Yeah? And I was told that I'm given 10 to 15 minutes to make my presentation. Dr. Intan, please remind me if I overshot of my time provided. Yeah.
Yes, we'll do that. Don't worry.
Okay. Before I proceed with my presentation, just allow me to share briefly with the audience about the Ministry of Transport Sarawak, because we are the youngest ministry amongst the 12 ministries in Sarawak now, and we were established on the 22nd of August 2019. And prior to this, transportation matters were under the purview of Ministry of Infrastructure and Port Development of Sarawak. Okay, and we cover 3 sub-areas, namely aviation, maritime and riverine, and transport, land transportation. Currently, our strength is 58 officers and staff. That is a snapshot or a brief introduction about the Ministry of Transport Sarawak. So now let me go into the presentation proper. But before we go into the 7 enablers, as mentioned earlier by the Dr. Intan, I think it is appropriate for us to see the big picture for our discussion this morning, meaning to say we must know the beginning and the ending. So what Mr. Patrick has shared with the audience earlier on is the state aspiration, meaning to say, in brief, we want to become a developed state by the year 2030, where the key drivers would be the digital and innovation. And we want to achieve not only economic growth, but social equality and environmental protection. So that is in a nutshell. In order to achieve this, we must be good in 7 areas, which we call the strategic thrust. And that also has been elaborated by Patrick, meaning to say we must transform our economic structure, we must ease the way we do business, and then we must focus in certain areas that has the biggest impact, and so on and so forth. And when we know what is our aspiration and where are the focus area, then we go into what are the economic areas that we must develop in order to achieve the desired economic growth and development of the state. And this has been explained in very detail by Dr. Muhammad earlier on. There are 6 key economic areas: tourism, agriculture, forestry, mining, and services. And there are certain key areas that we must zoom in by bringing in both domestic investment as well as foreign direct investment. But despite you have the aspiration, you have the strategic thrust, you know where the economic sector, but you cannot do anything if you don't have the enablers to drive the changes, the development that you want to achieve by 2030. That is the storyline. So with that, I will go into what are the 7 enablers that we need to transform the state economy, okay, and to become a developed state by 2030. Based on the discussions that were held between the consultant and together with EPU, led by EPU and all the ministry on the department, we have agreed that there are 7 key enablers that we must put in place to drive, to bring changes to the state economy. And under these 7 enablers, we actually have 5 major initiatives. There are so many. And each of these enablers is led by different ministry. And I don't want to claim that I drive all these 7 enablers. No, I only lead in one of the 7 enablers, that is the transport sector. So from there, you notice that there is a flow. You start with aspiration, then you have the strategic thrust, then you have the economic sector, then you have the enablers, the 7. Under the 7 enablers, you have 35 catalytic initiatives. And under this initiative, you have many projects, okay? So I want the audience to understand the big picture so that you can follow the discussion. It cannot be fragmented in nature, yeah? So now let me go into what are the 7 key enablers. Based on the document, what has been agreed by the state government through the ministry, to be implemented through the ministry, the first key enablers is digital transformation. And this will be led by the Sarawak Multimedia Authority. Why digital transformation is very important? Because it will empower the Sarawak economic sector to increase its productivity and efficiency, yeah? Meaning to say, nowadays, the way we do business is digital. And this is even critical and even important in this COVID-19 pandemic. There is no meeting in person or physical meeting. It has to be done mostly through digital, yeah, for productivity and efficiency. What are the major catalytic initiatives under digital transformation? There are 5 here. Let me briefly bring through what are the 5 catalytic initiatives. First is we want to digitize the private sector economy or digitalization of private sector economy. Example is e-commerce platform. So we also want to digitalize the way we do business. In terms of government sector, we have digital government services, yeah? And we also want to grow the digital and ICT industries. Example, through the creation of data center. We also want to improve digital connectivity infrastructure, not only just in the urban areas, but more critically for the people in the rural areas. So rural connectivity is very important. And of course, we need people who are good in digital. So you must develop the talent, meaning to say digital talents. That's why you see that we are building digital ICT center throughout the state, and we are organizing upskilling programs for our people in the state. So that is the first enablers. The second enablers is about innovation, which is equally important for us to develop our economic sector, to enhance our productivity, develop new solutions, new product for both domestic and export market. What are the 5 catalytic initiatives under innovation enablers, which was led by the Sarawak Biodiversity Centers? For example, we are looking into the development of Biotechnology Innovation Center. Example is the establishment of Sarawak Bio-Industrial Park. We want to have digital R&D innovation center, a digital test bed and living lab. We also want to look into renewable energy innovation cluster. For example, BioHub port. And of course, you need money. When you need money, you must develop your venture capital fund. You know, venture capital fund operationalization is critical to drive all this development. Yeah. The third key enablers is the development of the basic infrastructure. Why basic infrastructure is important? Because it will provide reliable access to social and economic hub to meet the current need and the future needs of the state. Okay, these enablers on basic infrastructure is led by the Ministry of Infrastructure and Port Development. There are 8 catalytic initiatives under these enablers. For example, how to increase the efficiency of port services in Sarawak. So they want to do a master plan study for all ports in Sarawak. The development of major roads, for example, including the coastal road network. The development of free industrial zone near to the port, for example, next to the Senari port.
Sekolah kah? Sekolah rendah.
And also we are looking into
simpang.
I'm
Depan
talking
sekolah
of
itu ada
somebody is talking.
simpang, ada jalan, ada surau di hujung jalan itu.
I'm talking of somebody. And they want to reinvigorate the Miri Port at the Northern Gateway. These are some of the initiatives under the basic infrastructure. And also the fourth enablers is utilities. Utilities is very important because we want to ensure that services are provided equitably in a reliable, economical, safe, and sustainable manner. When you talk about utilities, basically water and power, yeah? So they want to do something like a Sarawak water supply grid, gas pipeline from Bintulu, Samalaju, utility corridor. These are the major catalytic initiatives that will be implemented through the Ministry of Public Utility. Yeah? The fifth enablers is renewable energy. This is led by the Sarawak Energy Berhad. Yeah? Why this is important? Because they aspire to become a regional powerhouse through affordable, reliable, and renewable energy that is contributing to sustainable growth and prosperity. Because you remember, one of the key words when you talk about the state aspiration is environmental sustainability. So this is very important, and it fit well to that aspiration. So all these things are actually interrelated, and there must be a strategic alignment between what we do, between all these aspirations, trust, economic sector, and enablers. Yeah, and the 6 enablers is education and human capital development. This is led by the Ministry of Education, Science, Technology, and Research. Yeah. So what they want to do is they want to develop the education and human capital with the purpose to increase the efficiency of workers and help economy to move up the value chain. Yeah, the value chain is very critical. So they have 3 catalytic initiatives. One is they want to create a strategic partnership between the industries and the various stakeholders, and this will be carried out through human capital development councils. So they also want to promote the science literacy among our workforce and society, and this will be done through the science centers, and it is being built now. Is next to the STIDC building, yeah, in Kuching here. And of course, education is not just for a group of people. We must make sure access to education is meant to everybody in the state, be it in the rural area, be it in the urban areas. So disparity in quality education need to be addressed, and they have these ideas of setting up, or it's already approved, the setting up of international school in the state. Yeah, and the 7, or the last but not the least important enablers is transport, which is directly under myself. Why transport is very important? Because we want to connect the key economic center, you know, the key production area and the market. We cannot just produce something, but we cannot sell. It doesn't bring any income to the people, to the state. And when you talk about transportation sector, we are very focused on moving forward to low carbon emission technology and adoption of digital solution. I mean, when you ask me how, in Kuching, for example, now, when you talk about stage bus services, it's not just about diesel-driven buses, but we also have hydrogen, we have electric-powered stage bus. So this is meaning to say we are very caring about the sustainability of the environment in the state. So we also have our key catalytic initiative. We have 4. One, we want to develop the rural economy. So how do you develop the the river economy? You must make sure the river is safe, and this will be done. One of the many things that we intend to do is installation of aids to navigation, or in short, ATON. We also want to develop our land public transport. We want to change the landscape, the way we manage, the way we develop, the way we run land public transport in the state, in particular in Kuching. That's why we are starting with the Kuching urban transport system. Or in a simple layman term is, we are developing our ART, automated rapid transit. This will connect from Samarahan to Kuching and Samarahan to Sirian. There are 2 lines, yeah? So things are progressing well, and this is being managed by Sarawak Metro, a wholly owned subsidiary under the Sarawak Economic Development Corporation. We are also looking into the potential of developing the aviation industries in Sarawak. For example, you know, setting up aircraft maintenance, repair, and overhaul center. Probably some of you question, why now? Why now? Because during COVID-19 pandemic, there will be limited flight. No, we are not talking about today or tomorrow. We are talking about the next 10 years. That's why post-COVID development strategy 2030 is a long-term plan. It covers 2 Malaysia plan, the 12 plan, and the 13 plan. Hopefully, when the economy recover, the pandemic is over, people started to travel here and there, and that aircraft needs a lot of services and maintenance. That makes this proposal viable and feasible. And the other thing is the intermodal transport. This is very critical. For example, how you provide connectivity and accessibility from the port, from the production area to the port and to the market, or from the production area to the airport and go to the market. Meaning to say, you must have a good services. For example, a big lorry that bring your produce to the port, and you have a good shipping services that connect you to the overseas market. Yeah, and this is not merely ideas that flow in the air. And actually, you can see things is being carried out now. That is why we set out our Trade and Investment Office in Singapore, status, meaning to say, whatever we produce in Sarawak, we can bring it to Singapore, the nearest market, international market that we can have. So this plan, these ideas are not something that float in the air. The ideas is very, very feasible, and let us all together work together and get it implemented. Of course, we need participation, not just from the government sector, but participation from the private sectors is even critical, because they are the people to bring in the investment that drive the desired changes as stipulated under the plan. Yeah. So I'm not going to go beyond this. Dr. Intan, how much time do I have? Overshot? Dr. Intan?
Sudah 2 minit overshot, bos.
Okay. Thank you. You remind.
Tak apa.
Tapi bukan OB lah, bukan outbound, yang overshot saja.
Overshot saja. So
boleh lagi 1 minit.
Thank you. I'm not going to go beyond that. There are other things as mentioned by Dr. Muhammad. You have to see where are the big projects, what are the outcome of all this. So I want the audience to understand the various stages of this plan. Otherwise, you see it in isolation. So as a conclusion, I must recap that the framework of this plan, meaning to say, we have clear aspiration, a developed state by 2030. We know where are the areas that we must improve. For example, we must restructure our economy. We must improve the way we deal with the private sectors. And with this good thing, then we develop all the sectors of the economy, especially the manufacturing, the agriculture and tourism. And these can only be transformed through the implementation of the 7 enablers, including transport. And how to change it? Of course, it must through catalytic initiative. For example, how to transform the public transport. Of course, you must have ART, good buses, yeah? At the end of the day, what actually we want to achieve? We want to make sure that the economy is growth, people are benefiting, and we take care of the environment. So it is actually a circle when you look at the story, yeah? So I believe with the presentation by the 3 of us, there will be more understanding, more appreciation of this document. And we don't want to be blamed that we never share with you all. So we are here doing our part this morning to share, to disseminate the information that is necessary to all of you. So with that, thank you to the Dr. Intan, and also thank you to EPU, and thank you to Patrick, and thank you to Dr. Muhammad. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Buckland, for that very, very enlightening and high spirits presentation on the 7 enablers to support the 6 economic sectors under the PCDS 2030. All right. So thank you so much to all the distinguished speakers. Wow. reading through the questions that all of you out there post to us. Wah, bukan calang-calang audience ni. Datuk, Dr. and Mr. Patrick. Waduh, saya baca pun blown away. Ay, canggih-canggih saja all the questions.
No, that
So
shows,
well done.
Dr. Intan, that shows the intellectual level of Sarawakian that promise to bring it to the developed state by the year 2030. The audience shows it, you know.
Yes, well done everyone. Very proud of all of you. And maybe it's the semangat of the Merdeka month of August as well. So we are all very high-spirited and patriotic to develop our beloved state of Sarawak towards advanced and developed state by the year 2030. All right, let's get on to the question and answer session. Banyak ni. So are you guys ready, panelists? Bukan calang-calang punya soalan ni. I start with the most difficult for Mr. Patrick. In your opinion, what are the biggest challenges in driving this PCDS 2030 plans? This is a culmination of the audience Q&A. I try to summarize it into big chunks of question for the speakers to answer here today. So, Mr. Patrick, please, the biggest challenges in driving this PCDS. Thank you.
Thank you. So I can set the tone, right? Yeah. So I assume when this question is asked, people talk about execution, right? I think some people will say the scale of the task, right, that has to be achieved, given that we are looking to, more than double the growth rates, of what was achieved over the past few years. Others will say it's the scale of the funding that is required to actually mobilize because you can't achieve growth without, investing. I think for me, when we look at the potential and the capabilities as well as how economies develop and the global economic and investment trends, for me, and it was a great thing to hear you say earlier, right, that one of your earlier seminars was growth mindsets. For me, I think changing mindsets will be extremely important. Now, we have, the tone from the top, Yang Amat Berhormat CM, and also all the deputy CMs and the ministers, as well as the civil service leadership, has signed up to this. They believe this can happen, and it's mobilizing the state to put in the enablers, to create the environment for the private sector to drive the growth. One of the participants, talked about the private sector. I think it's extremely important. If everybody sits there and thinks that the state is going to drive the growth, it won't happen. Right? The private sector needs to be taking the opportunity, and also, right, and this is, I've got to be careful here, but I always believe in this. The private sector, the rakyat, also needs to hold the state accountable in a constructive fashion. If the state is committed to certain things like opening opportunities, making it easier to do business, if it's not happening on the ground, the private sector, the rakyat needs to call it out, because not everybody is perfect. Without the challenge, the constructive comments, the feedback, you will know, where you may have blind spots and where you do not open it up. So I think, in summary, I think the Sarawakians need to believe and work with the government to make this happen. And the 7 trusts, it will definitely help ensure that aspirations can be achieved. So the 7 trusts, I wouldn't read them through again. Earlier we covered changing economic structure. I think the commitment is there to improve the ease of doing business. Some of the questions was asking about, like how to improve the connectivity, how to attract talent. I think that's where prioritizing and targeting spending to the highest impact areas and projects important. There was another question around, or some comment around, physical assets, etc., and all that. So optimizing physical assets, infrastructure development, human capital development is also important. Leveraging digital, and foremost, right, if you want to sustain, and there was another question about sustaining this in a volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world. I think, like, to sustain this, you need the support of the rakyat. So you need to, ensure and prioritize, the benefit to the rakyat, the social inclusivity. And then, as Dr. Bakulan said, again, you also don't want to lose what made you successful. So because Sarawak is such a green and such a renewable, sustainable state, you also want to enhance and ensure the environmental sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. Not only you managed to summarize most of the main question being posed by the participants, but you have re-emphasized the need for the engagement and constructive feedback from the rakyat. There are many channels available nowadays through the social media, through NGOs, through writing in to the respective agencies. There are many ways for the rakyat to contribute and bring forth their ideas and feedback. So related to this PCDS and also what Mr. Patrick mentioned just a while ago is the issue of unemployment as well that is bugging people who are suffering the impact of COVID. Undeniably, there are pockets of unemployment here and there that we have been hearing. So this question is for Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad. How does the PCDS help in reducing the unemployment rate of people in Sarawak? That's one of the main concerns. Okay, Dr. Muhammad, please.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Intan. Thank you, Patrick, just now, and Dr. Baklan, a very interesting presentation. Okay, to answer on the employability or unemployment. So basically, what this post-COVID development strategy have in store is basically what we call the projects that have been put on the table, open to everybody. Basically, as you know, the pandemic have caused a lot of I would say unemployment, but more like in a sense that unemployment. But at the same time, based on our data that we have, employment is also on the rise, especially for the fresh graduates and those in the early stage of employment. So the employment, based on the data that we have, employment is actually what we call is actually on on upward curve. But the unemployment was broken into two. One is the voluntarily service surrender or VSS, or termination. So these are the two sectors that is actually recording these are the two set of unemployment that we have on our record. And the way we look at it, these two type of unemployment is temporary at this juncture. This is because of economic pressure that we had last year. And in fact, on inflation-wise, our inflation, we are experiencing deflation. Malaysia in general and Sarawak as well was experiencing deflation last year. But this year, we are expecting to see at least a 1.7% inflation. So, which is a positive from a deflation to an inflation. So the question asks, in a situation where you are experiencing deflation, that is normal for unemployment to increase. But at the same time, in Sarawak, as what I saw some of the comment given at the chat box now, that Sarawak is attracting talent instead of others are chasing away talent. Sarawak is attracting talent, and honestly, for the fresh graduate and the new graduates, especially those in the professional qualification like engineering, accounting, and whatnot, this group of graduates are actually on the employment mode at the moment. In fact, I myself, people have been asking me for recommendation of jobs, which they already have existing jobs, which they are looking forward to jump to another job. So this is what we are experiencing now. They are not wanting to keep the present job, but they are looking forward for a better pay. So, and in the time of pandemic, so people are actually talking around, is there any better job? And they are already employed at the moment, but they are actually, so you can imagine that this is during the pandemic or economic crisis, people are asking for a better job. Not to say that, so Sarawak is actually not as bad as compared to but with this plan that we have, we will promise a job creation of 200,000 new job creation by the year 2030 to increase our job numbers from presently about 1.2 million to 1.5. I think this is basically where we are heading towards, right? 2030 unemployment.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. It's very very heartening and a relief to hear that there are good trends happening in terms of employment. Okay, so maybe we go now a bit into the infrastructure aspect. I can see there are more than 5 or 6 questions on infrastructure. People would like to know the basics of any development, which is infrastructure. Yeah, for that, I would like the wisdom of Dato' Baklan, please, on the question of infrastructure during the first stage of PCDS. Yeah, so the YMB Chief Minister during the unveiling of this PCDS mentioned that the first stage will be to develop basic infrastructure as the key driver to develop our economy. So Dato' Baklan, what are the major development projects or initiatives during this first stage of PCDS, and what will be the major impacts, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Intan. In any development planning, in any economic planning, we must put in place the basic item first. The basic items include the basic infrastructure. So when you talk about basic infrastructure, there are many, but let us focus into, for example, the construction of roads, the construction of bridges, the construction of the ports, the airports, even the provision of water, clean water supply and powers and utilities. So these are basic infrastructure in a bigger context. Okay, these are very important, not just to meet the needs of the people in Sarawak. You and I, we want to have a good road. Why? For us to go to school, for us to go to the market. These are basic. You must have the port to bring your produce out. Okay, so basic infrastructure is important, but it is equally important for us to bring in investment from outside to develop our state. For example, if we want to bring investors from outside to invest in the state of Sarawak, they will look into, number one, is the infrastructure that we have. Do we have industrial estate? Do you have good water supply? Power supply? Do we have a good transport network? Ports and airport. This is the importance of basic infrastructure. Okay, so where are we now? Where are we now under our PCDS 2030? There are many projects that are being implemented and will be implemented under this plan. For example, the coastal road network, the second trunk road, the bridges, even the ports. We need to improve the services, the transportation. These are being implemented. I don't have to go project by projects, including our ART is also basic requirement that we need in the city of Kuching, because we want to have the status of a city. So we must put in place all these things, the needs of the people in the state, as well as the need for investors to entice and attract them to come in. So I'm not going to tell you one by one what the infrastructure. There are many infrastructure that are being done. The water supply, the power supply, the road, the bridges, even the ports and the airports. These are huge investment that are undertaken by the state government. You must remember that, by the state governments. And we don't rely totally on the federal government, because we know that it's very important. For example, to complete the connectivity in the coastal areas, the 5 bridges, it costs billions. And we don't rely on the federal government. We want to make sure that Sarawak, by the year 2030, we have all the basic infrastructure needed. Even internet connectivity are being done. Okay? We do not want to be at the mercy of other people. That is why we need to remember. We need to remember this. Let me look at my note. We must make sure we have a plan. If we fail to plan, we plan to fail. But number one, here we have a plan, a very clear plan. You know, a very comprehensive plan. That's number one. With a good plan, we must have a political stability. We have ingredient also. We have the best chief ministers who can drive us. We government servant is to execute all the policies, the programs and projects. So what do you want? To us, Sarawakian, let us work together and get all these things done. Don't fight. If you're not happy, you tell. Don't talk behind. That is my humble comment on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Datuk Baklan, for that very comprehensive.
Dr. Intan, can I add a bit more to what Dr. Baklan mentioned just now?
Please.
Yes, it's true. The infrastructure, as you correctly said, and Dr. Baklan confirmed it that the first 5 years, first Malaysian, the 12th Malaysian plan, focus is on the infrastructures and on the bridges and the roads. And the next Malaysia plan is the 13th Malaysia plan. The next 5 years towards the 2030, the government is emphasizing on talent development, and on the innovation and aspect, utilizing the existing infrastructure that we have laid out for this 5-year Malaysia plan. So that is what Dato' Baklan say. There is a plan, and a good plan is there. So if you don't plan, you plan to fail, basically. So thank you, Dato'. It's very wise.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the wisdom, gentlemen. So I hear that Dr. Baklan mentioned about digital connectivity. So remember, on digital economy, which is the baby of our YAB Chief Minister. Yes. So in relation to that, there's a question by our audience that they are very concerned about the digital gap between the urban and rural areas. So Mr. Patrick Tay, they would like to know, how will the government of Sarawak overcome this issue? And what are the measurements taken under the PCDS to in relation to addressing the digital gap? Mr. Patrick, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Intan. Definitely a very important topic. You know, digital gap is something that the state is focused on addressing from what we've seen in the post-COVID development strategy. As I said, Sarawak has many unique challenges, right? Due to extensive land area, low population density, as well as topography, right? So topography being, a lot of rolling hills, mountainous regions, and deep forested areas, etc. So the plan as it stands currently has a very clear aim to ensure access to internet connectivity 20 to 100 megabits per second. With the asterisk caveat there, urban centers should be much more faster because it's commercially viable to do that. You can see in the detail of the plan, that there is a strong focus on upgrading and enabling the digital infrastructure to ensure high quality and extensive access. Because without reach in the digital economy world, you don't have the foundation for economic, social, and public sector transformation. So what we would recommend, because resources are also scarce, right? We would recommend that the initial priority be upgrading the digital infrastructure to key economic centers and selected rural areas with economic potential to support the prosperity, and also to ensure equitable access to digital infrastructure. However, there is also a need to strike a balance so that even some communities where it's not economically viable, you still need to, for equitable access, provide them with access. I think this is where there are federal funds to tap into, right, to bring access to areas. Now, the key to maximizing the impact of the available resources, right, is to ensure that we are open-minded to explore the most cost-effective and efficient way to deliver the access, because particularly to the rural and remote islands, because the cost-effective way and efficient way may not be the same way as you are delivering the access to more densely populated urban and sub-regional centers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Patrick. So we see that the participants are also very excited about the coming budget session. So in relation to this, Dr. Muhammad, there's a question about spending and also in terms of targeted spending. So what are the criteria to determine targeted spending on areas that will yield the most economic, social, and environmental impacts? As you know, our budget is limited. Yeah. So can you give an example of a targeted spending area? Thank you.
Okay. Basically, when you mention about spending, as what was mentioned, that we have about 63 billion for the 10-year program, the plan that we intend to implement. The 63 billion is not basically all what we call capital expenditure or development expenditure for that matter. It is also include alternative funding that we generate from the capital market, which and to help those project that is to drive the investment in Sarawak. So on the spending itself, everything, whatever we spend, we must spend where it matters most. That's where I believe where this strategic plan anchor on. So when you ask what are the good example of project, good example of project where we put our funding to utmost, to the optimum. It's basically as you Dr. Bakar mentioned just now and Patrick answered on the internet connectivity, because we believe with 2.8 million population Sarawak have at the moment, and probably going forward probably close to 3 million until by the year 2030, the government now spend a lot of money on infrastructure for connectivity to closer the gap between the urban and the rural. Because with small number of population, we cannot be labor intensive economy. We must be a very efficient and high productive economy, so that it will translate to a higher household income. So by having a very good internet connectivity, in fact, the Sarawak government now is actually working on the 5G on the spectrum, on the 70 megahertz spectrum from MCMC. She's been negotiating and acquire that spectrum so that will ease the connectivity between the rural and the urban. So by adapting and by believing in digital economy, we can increase our efficiency. So money, actually, one example I can give is that money is spent on this digital infrastructure, including encouraging the setting our data centers, improving gateways, and then at the same time fiberizing our network. So this somehow or other will increase the number of traffic of internet user, and therefore reduce the cost of internet usage in Sarawak, and eventually will make it very affordable to everybody, even to the folks in the rural area. Meaning to say that they can actually transact, those are underserved and unserved sector of the rural area will be integrated with those in the urban area, so that there is no gap, and development and business opportunity or entrepreneurship can grow exponentially, even from back in the kampong and things like that. So Sarawak, as I believe, is not so much of a domestic-driven economy, but rather it is an economy that needs to export its resources out in order to bring in the dollar back to the state, in order for us to enjoy the prosperity. That's my comment, Intan.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Muhammad. Yeah? So we heard the word traffic, and it links to a question by participants on traffic and transport, Dato' Baklan. They want to know, yeah, since transport, you mentioned, is an enabler under PCDS 2030. So they want to know, what is the rate of dependency of public in Sarawak in terms of current public transport? We see different kind of buses on the road, things coming up in terms of LRT, as you mentioned. But what is the rate of dependency, and how do we increase that, Dato'? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Intan. I think based on some of the earlier studies that was carried out, the dependency on public transport is very low. If I could remember correctly, based on one study in Kuching, not throughout Sarawak, the percentage of people using public transport, buses, all those things is only, I think it's around 2%, which is very low, That is based on one study in Kuching. But I believe that reflects the situation in the other major town in the state. Okay, so with that study actually tell us a lot of things. That is why we want to improve the public transportation system in the state. And for that purpose, we start with Kuching. Okay, we start with Kuching. We start with a small step. For example, we start with the RM1 bus fare programs, meaning to say we want to encourage people to use buses, to go to work, to sell the produce. RM1, I can tell you, that is very cheap. And not only that, there are 2 buses that offer zero fare, free FOC. Our hydrogen bus and our electric bus in Kuching, free. But before, yes, we are the only state that give RM1 or free bus in the country. But now we notice that based on the newspaper, there are other states follow our state. I think in Selangor, in Perak, they also give free buses services, based on the newspaper. So to us, it all leads to managing public transportation system in the state. Of course, there are many arguments, to reduce congestion, all those things. But what we are doing now, we start with the bus services. We want people to use buses in the urban areas. It will lead to reduction in traffic jam, all those things, environmental pollution, all those things. So we encourage people. We give affordable fare first. Then we see it must be safe. Then it must be reliable. So that's why we are working together with the bus companies so that they can improve the bus services in the city areas as well as within the suburban areas. So, we started in May in 2020, and until now, the numbers of ridership, people using bus, public transport, I think it has increased from per month. The figures was, I think, 12,000 for the Sarawak, and now it increased to almost more than 1 million. I have the figures here, but I don't want to look into, but it's more 1 million. Ridership, people, meaning to say there is a good trend that people are starting to use buses. And we are not happy yet, because we are working with the bus company so that more people using buses. So we have to improve the buses, not just the scheduling, for example, every 15 minutes, but the condition of the bus also. Kalau the bus condition is bad, you also the one to stay in the bus. So these are the things that the ministry are working together with the state government, together with the bus companies. And of course, there are other things. Application of smart traffic light that are being done, throughout the state. So these are some of the initiatives. And we also want to make sure that in the state, you notice that there are more and more lorries in the state. So to make sure that lorries are well managed, we are proposing to have a special parking areas for lorries, for example. So if the lorry travel from Kuching to Miri, they cannot simply park anywhere. They must go to these dedicated lorry parking areas. So we are working with the council with this and looking at the business model. If the council manage it well, it can create some income to the council, working together with the lorry owners. Yeah. So of course we are working with other, taxis, the Grab. This is some of the things. This is land transport. This is only land transport. We are also working on how to improve the riverine transport. We talked earlier on the river economy. If possible, river transport should be 24 hours or so, just like road. We spend so much money to construct the road, and the big vehicles are damaging the road. If the big bulky goods can be transported through river, that will be good. Reduce the damage on the road itself, and it will enhance the traffic flow using river. And it is based on some of the analysis, it is cheaper and you carry more goods. For example, one big ship, you can carry X amount tons of FFB. If you use lorry, you need probably 30 or 40 lorries. You see, there are some comparisons that you can see using your naked eyes. You can analyze that. Yeah, that is in terms of riverine traffic. Yeah. So hopefully we install the aton, we improve the jetty, the wharf. All those bulky must use river. These are being done in Europe, for example. I forgot. I think Patrick, you can tell me there are some being done in Europe. And we are also looking into the airlines. These are convergent with the other sectors, with the tourism sectors. How can we improve the air connectivity? Yeah, so we have to work. We cannot just work alone. As I mentioned, we are just enablers. We are supporting the economic sector. So we have to work with the tourism. Where do we go? Of course, people may ask, hey, why are you talking about pandemic? Where got people travel? But as I've said earlier, we are not talking about today. Probably within the next 2 years, things getting better, more and more people travel. So where do we go? We want to make sure the nearest is how can we link ourselves within the Bimyaga region. There are many places that we can connect to Kalimantan, the capital city, to Sabah, to Sulawesi, all within this region. So the ideas are there, but that's why we need the support, the cooperation of the publics and the relevant stakeholders to work with us together. So we are very open. We listen to suggestions, comments, but we don't want people to just hantam. That's not good. Give ideas, give suggestions, because this is all for us in the state of Sarawak. Nobody will do that. We Sarawakian must do that. Okay, thank you.
That's absolutely to the point, Dato' Baklan, whereby accessibility, and connectivity, the number one, impetus to growth. Yeah. So when we are having fun, times just seem to fly. It's 11:43. We did not realize that it has gone 15 minutes overboard. So maybe we would like to wrap up the session by one final question to the speaker. Just maybe half a minute round up about what do you guys feel about this plan? Are you optimistic that we can achieve this PCDS by 2030? Maybe we can start with Mr. Patrick first, please. Thank you. 30 seconds.
Thank you, Dr. Intan. I have to say I'm non-Sarawakian, but always when I do work, and I've spent so many months in Sarawak helping with the work, I always go and talk extensively to people, right, from all ranges of society, from all sectors. And I think, what I am most optimistic about is the underlying potential that is waiting to be unleashed among Sarawakians. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Muhammad Zaidir, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Intan. Thank you, Patrick, for the nice words. Though you are not Sarawakian, but you are close to us in terms of your work and things like that. Thank you very much for that. What I have to say is that I am very optimistic about this plan, this development plan, because for one, we have the political will. Meaning to say our political masters have this vision. And it's from the top. At the same time, as you can see from the questions that being brought up by the members of this webinar, that you can see they are very intellectual and they're very forward, and the nature of the question that they ask are actually very optimistic and wanting to know more and hungry for development. And I think the only thing that can realize this actually is the people, is the business sector and the government delivery services. That is in place at the moment can only, I believe, can only bring this to another level. But most importantly, we have a very good chief minister, as what Dr. Buckland mentioned just now. He's very visionary. He brought up new ideas and new approaches towards developing Sarawak to a developed state by the year 2030. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Buckland, please.
Patrick, you are Sarawakian, you know. Okay, I have this short words to share with the public. We have a good plan. The plan is very clear, yeah? It's very clear. We know where we want to go, what we need to do, and how to do it. The plan is there. We have the political stabilities. We have a visionary leaders. We Sarawakian are known to be united. We live in harmony. So this ingredient plus the potential that we have, I think it is possible for us to realize the aspiration of post-COVID development strategy 2030. I think by then we should be able to achieve our target in terms of our economic growth, our income, and protection of the environment. I think let us work together. It is possible. We can do that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Dato'. Yes, I concur that we are, in MASA as well as in the state government. We are putting in initiatives in terms of good governance, transparency, and with that comes political will, and as mentioned by Patrick and Dr. Muhammad as well, we need all of you out there. Whether you are from the government, from the business sectors, the public themselves, NGOs, you have the avenue, you have the power, to change, the future of Sarawak. So please, we need your feedback, your recommendations, your constructive strategies to help the government, to help the NGO and the private sectors to move the agenda of development under PCDS 2030. Together, we can make it happen. So that is the man. Yes, Mr. Patrick, yeah.
I noticed Dr. Richard Wee and Tan Sri Hamid has their hands up in the chat.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe do we want to allow them to speak? Tan Sri, would you like to have a few words as the president of MASA, please? Dr. Tan Sri Hamid Bugo, please.
Maybe I don't know whether it's maybe they mistakenly raised their hands or not, but that's what I see in the chat, in the participants.
Yes, so maybe Tan Sri, would you like to give us a few concluding remarks or observations?
Tan Sri, you are on mute, right, Tan Sri?
Tan Sri, or just now was it Richard? Tan Sri Hamid, are you still there?
There's also one by Noor Zalida.
Enable Tan Sri. Secretariat, please enable Tan Sri to come in. Okay, Tan Sri, silakan. Your concluding remarks and feedback, please. Tan Sri Hamid Bugo, the floor is yours. Thank you. Silakan, Tan Sri. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Please proceed, sir.
No, yeah,
But
I
no
heard
video,
you.
Tan Sri. There's no
Yeah,
video of
thank you. I think what I want to say is that you have done an excellent job, all of you, with all your presentations today. And obviously, but I don't want to talk about MASA because, as I said earlier, Dr. Intan, you have already introduced what MASA is all about. And what has happened today also, I think, has given an impression, a good impression of what MASA is all about. But what I want to share, if I may, is a little comment on the strategies, which I believe is a very well done strategies. It's a very good strategies. But something that has not been emphasized, there is a little bit mentioned about it, is the delivery system in our what you call administration. I'm a bit worried about that because I think that unless there is a drastic, if you like, I choose the word drastic transformation in the way that things are being done in the delivery system, I think you all, those of you who will survive 2030, I will not, I'm sure, will be disappointed that these objectives that we have outlined may not be realized. And just a simple example, I mean, I think many of us know it takes months, if not years, to get approval from SPA, for example, in many projects. It takes months for us to get work permit from the immigration department, for example. It takes months just to get land title issued. Even everything has already been processed properly. I think Dr. Muhammad is very much in the picture. I know he sometimes get very agitated about it, but I think Dr. Muhammad, I think probably something more empathetic, more emphasis to be given in the plan itself, in the implementation of the plan, maybe for your second phase. Otherwise, honestly, this very good objectives and plan will be disappointed. We all will be disappointed. They cannot be achieved. That's all I want to say, and except on behalf of MASA, of course, to thank all of you for the excellent job that you do today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tan Sri. And I understand Dato' Richard Wee would like to be enabled. Can the admin admit Dato' Richard Wee? Okay, thank you, Tan Sri. Okay, Dato' Intan, please.
Yes, yes. Okay, Dato' Richard, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you.
Before Dato' Richard starts, he is the president of the Sarawak Chinese Federation, Business Federation. Yeah, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Intan. Thank you, Dr. Abdullah, Dr. Baklan, and Patrick. I think it has been a very insightful morning to talk about this strategy. I do share what Tan Sri Bugo has mentioned just now. Exactly what I wanted to share, but probably in a different manner that is being put forward. I think the entire scheme and the entire development strategy
that has been put forward by you all with the vision of the Chief Minister has been a very comprehensive and well thought through sort of plan and long-term strategy going forward. But I think, as I always mention, a good plan is only as good as its implementation, and its delivery, like what Tan Sri Hamid has just mentioned. Areas of which he mentioned that if certain areas can be using the latest technology like the digital system to try to approve simple things, like renewal of trade licenses and all that sort of thing, and those would probably enhance the efficiency of all these other that relate to the let's say hawkers and all the other people-centric type of policies. But the other thing that is important is what, and I think Tan Sri Hamid has mentioned, maybe the government can also look into streamlining the approving processes. I think if it can be done with, if let's say application for no matter what it is, whether it's a development or land development or building approval or whatever it is, if they can follow, if they can undertake to follow the bylaw that has been set up by the government, then that could be a faster and more efficient process to do so. And the other thing that I probably would like Dr. Ahmad and Patrick, you all are basically the man behind this strategy, is that maybe there is you can also have a system to ensure that while these plans are actually very comprehensive and all the different enablers and the clusters and all that, is it possible to have something like a monetary system to ensure that periodical review of the status and the progress to ensure the target dates and all that sort of thing are being achieved, so that you know that how the various different clusters are progressing. And also it is a way of monitoring the implementation and the efficiency of how it's being done. I think if we are able to do so and on a periodical basis, I think it would also enhance the entire development strategy. I have been very fortunate through the that I've been invited to also sit on the SEAC Council, but I also took the opportunity to participate in some of the clusters meeting. But I think overall there is a need of some fine-tuning of these areas, which I also share what Tan Sri Hamid had mentioned, and also the kind of monitoring and implementation for the delivery of the strategy. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. for sharing with us the ideas and wisdom on this matter. Right. Okay, thank you so much. So time is not on our side, as they say, when the good times roll, we don't feel it. So thank you to all of you who has made this webinar today such an engaging, high-spirited and full of wisdom and experiences, whether it's a way forward as well as the reminders for us to constantly improve on our delivery system and good governance in delivering our strategies to the rakyat. So since it's the month of August, allow me to end our webinar today with a quote by a famous person as a reminder to all of us. Ask not what the country can do for you, but what you can do for the country. So with that, on behalf of the Institute of Management Sarawak and the Economic Planning Unit of Sarawak State Government, we would like to thank all of you for being here today and make this webinar session such an enjoyable and also hopefully to all of you a useful one as well. Yeah, so remember the slide on MASA will be coming after this in case you would like to get in touch with us, and welcome all of you to become our member of MASA so that you can join all our future events under MASA, right? So any last words from any panelists before we go? So if there's none, we would like to wish all of you selamat menyambut kemerdekaan yang ke-64. Take care everyone and God bless. Okay, see you again in the next webinar. Thank you everyone.
Bye. Okay, Catherine.
Okay, have a look at the MASA website and Facebook for coming events. See you at the State Budget Talk on the 4th of September, everyone. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Sarawakku sayangku, kebanggaanku selalu, aman makmur selamanya Sarawakku. Rakyat bersatu padu, pemimpin mengambil tahu, menuju maju Sarawak maju. Kita anak Sarawak, sama-sama jaga Sarawak. Kita sayang Sarawak, sanggup berkorban untuk Sarawak. Oh ha, mari laungkan bersama. Sama-sama kita jaga Sarawak. Sarawakku sayangku, kebanggaanku selalu, aman makmur selamanya Sarawakku. Rakyat bersatu padu, pemimpin mengambil tahu, menuju mercu Sarawak maju. Kita anak Sarawak, sama belah nyingku Sarawak. Kita sayau ke Sarawak, sanggup bergadai netan ke Sarawak. Oh ha, mari laungkan bersama. Oh ha, membara di dalam jiwa. Inilah negeriku, tanah tumpah darahku, sama-sama kita jaga Sarawak. Sama-sama kita jaga Sarawak.
Recording stopped.
Tony, this is recorded one, right?
Yeah, it's recorded.
Okay, good. Can we have a copy of this?
Kebanggaanku selalu,